Many type 2 diabetics are actually taking insulin every single day, and they really don't know the negative effects of what that insulin is doing. Now, do we know that insulin can actually bring down sugars? Yes, if you're taking insulin, you probably have noticed that for yourself, but the impacts long-term are devastating. So today I want to do an illustration of what insulin is doing in the body, why it's lowering your sugars, and why it's a bad problem for long-term usage. So let's go through this diagram here. I want to just describe some things here so you know what we're looking at. The first thing we can see, I have a blood artery here with your blood sugar and insulin. So let's define both of these. So we have your insulin right here. And this could be your synthetic insulin that you're injecting, or it could be the insulin producing from your pancreas as well. And we have, this is the blood sugar. Now the purpose of all of this blood sugar insulin response here is to get the sugar into your cells, right? Because inside your cells, we have what are called mitochondria, or the engines of your cells, if you will. And so the goal is to get the sugar into your mitochondria because this is where your ATP is being produced. ATP, or another word, is energy. So this is not why it's not uncommon to see individuals with type 2 diabetes have low energy, because they're not getting enough of their sugar into their cells and being able to produce this ATP or energy in the mitochondria. So this is a normal cell here we're looking at. And the goal is to get that insulin down into the receptor. This is a receptor. And that receptor then opens a door that then allows the sugar to enter into the cell, into your mitochondria. And then you have this energy production right here that's going on. That is the normal physiological function. This is what our body should be doing naturally every single day. But as a type 2 diabetic, the situation is different. So let's take a look at what happens when you have type 2 diabetes. So the same response, we have the receptor here, and the insulin is coming down, but unfortunately, something is blocking that receptor and its ability for the insulin to attach to the receptor. So then what happens? Well, this door never opens. And if that door never opens, can your sugar get into the cell? No. So then you have all of this mitochondria, or your engines, that are never receiving that, and so you don't have the ability, you have low ATP, or energy production. And so you can't produce the energy, and you don't function well. Now the question is, that we need to be asking ourselves is why? What is actually causing this to break down? And we'll come back to that in a second. But let's go over why insulin and injecting insulin or synthetic insulin can be harmful. So the goal with insulin is, if we go back to another cell here, we have our cell, we have our mitochondria in here, same situation, and now we've got our insulin receptor. Now the goal with insulin is, and imagine if we had tons of insulin filling up inside of our bloodstream here. And the goal is for the insulin, any insulin that's available, to grab onto sugar and then pull to get it down. We have multiple insulin fighting over receptors. Right now, it's going to seek out any ones. And yes, it's going to attach, and then the sugar is going to be able to enter into your bloodstream, into the mitochondria. That's why we see sugars dropping, because that amount of insulin. But here's the problem. When you have all of this insulin going into that receptor, what happens? Well, it starts to oversaturate it, and it starts blocking. So now what you have is you have cells that are working properly, and this high amounts of insulin is actually driving more cellular damage. You're perpetuating the disease process, because this is why we see normally, and some of you may be experiencing this, you started taking a low amount of insulin, and then what happened over time? You needed more. You needed more. The reason why you needed more is because more and more of these cells became damaged from the treatment that you're currently doing. Now, the other issue we see with insulin as well is that it actually contributes and increases the risk of other problems. We know that it can increase the risk of heart disease, and it can also increase the risk of kidney disease as well. We know this, that it increases it by 4 times. So this is not uncommon to see individuals who are on insulin have an increased risk of heart attacks and strokes, have an increased risk of the kidney becoming damaged, then leading towards dialysis as well. We also see an increase in weight. Why? Because insulin is a fat-storing hormone. It causes you to gain weight. So your doctors are telling you need to lose weight, and you're giving you a treatment protocol that's causing you to gain weight. It's a never-ending battle. So insulin itself will help you lower sugars in your bloodstream. But over long term, you're going to be getting issues like this going on and causing more and more damage at your receptors, requiring more and more insulin, and more cells become damaged, which then leads to causing conditions like we see here and things getting worse over time. So unfortunately, and I guess fortunately, I should say first, that insulin does help lower sugars, but unfortunately, you're at risk of causing other damage, other disease processes, and common complications of diabetes. So hopefully this illustration helps you understand a little more about how insulin impacts the body negatively and actually perpetuates your disease process, and unfortunately is never getting to the place to reverse diabetes.